us securing our data in motion can be one of the most difficult tasks we have. Because like you know, the internet and IPv4 was never designed to be secure. They assumed it was meant for a closed network, which it was at the time, so there really was no point in making the protocol slower by adding on security. So we tacked all that on. And just like everything else we do, once we know the security posture of our organization, we know what's the right mix of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And from that, we choose the security protocols we use and how strong they are. And by how strong, I don't mean how secure. Obviously, don't use protocols that are no longer considered secure. What we could do is use stronger or slightly weaker encryption. And for that, obviously, we need authentication protocols. We use those to transfer authentication data between two entities. With that, we can authenticate both the authentication entity, that will most often be a server, and we can authenticate ourselves. Well, not ourselves, but the server or the laptop or desktop that we're connecting from. So let's again start out with looking at some of the legacy protocols, as well as some of the protocols we use today. PAP, or Password Authentication Protocol, should not, and I hope isn't, used anymore. The client would initiate authentication by sending packets with their credentials, their username and passwords, at the start of the connection. It is not secure. Your credentials is sent in plain text, which we know we don't really want to use anywhere. Because obviously it's very susceptible to eavesdropping or man-in-the-middle attacks. We never, ever send credentials in plain text. Which brings us to CHAP, Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol, which is slightly smarter, because it protects against replay attacks by using an incrementally changing identifier and a variable channel's value. And both the client and the server need to know a shared secret, like a password, but the password is never sent over the network. So these are the good things. That's what's better about CHAP compared to PAP. And it is used by the point-to-point protocol, or PPP, the servers to validate the remote clients. CHAP periodically asks the clients to re-identify themselves, just like they did in the initial session. It uses a three-way handshake, like the TCP packets did. The TCP packets, they will send, SYN-ACK, ACK. CHAP is challenge, response, and then accept or reject. You have the right password or shared secret, you get accepted. What makes it not very secure, it stores the passwords of all the clients in plaintext. If someone were to give access to our server, they would have every single plaintext password for all our clients. No bueno. So mostly not used anymore. And every time we find out something is not super secure, make it a little bit better. And in comes EAP, Extensible Authentication Protocol, which uses 802.1x. In this case, we have three parties: a supplicant, an authenticator, and an authentication server. The supplicant would be a client device, workstation, server, laptop, and it wants to get a connection to our LAN or wireless LAN. Would normally have some sort of software on the client, provides the credentials to the authenticator. The authenticator would be some sort of networking device, switch or wireless access point, which then connects to an authentication server. This is very commonly used on Wi-Fi. Your device is the supplicant. The first time you connect, you enter the SSID and the password for the wireless. That's the software that runs on your system. Then you send that to the authenticator, their wireless access point, or your wireless router. Then that authenticates against some sort of backend system. If it's your home router, then it's probably all in one box. If it's at work in a large corporation, there's some sort of backend authentication system, probably Radius or Active Directory or something like that. And there are hundreds and hundreds of different types of EAP. Luckily, you only need to know very few of them. PEEP, or Protected EAP, encapsulates the EAP data with an encrypted and authenticated TLS tunnel, Transport Layer Security, and it was developed by Cisco, Microsoft, and RSA Security. EAP MD5 is very weak. It offers client-to-server authentication only, and only that, whereas most of the other versions offer mutual authentication. It is very vulnerable to man-in-the-middle and password attacks. Bleep, a lightweight EAP, was made by Cisco as part of the 802.1x and dynamic web adoption because at the time there was no real industry standard. I've only ever seen it on Cisco boxes, and there is no native Leap support on Windows operating systems. EAP TLS, or Transport Layer Security, uses PKIs, public key infrastructure, and it does require both server and client-side certificates. This also makes a TLS tunnel for the authentication, which makes it very secure, but also very complex and expensive. Remember, the right mix of security. Not too little, not too much, exactly enough. So we can use EAP Tunnel Transport Layer Security. Yeah, that's quite a mouthful. EAP TTLS. It offers different types of client authentication, but it drops the certificate requirement. We no longer use the PKI, making it much easier to deploy, but also inherently a little bit less secure. And then finally, PANA. No, it doesn't sound like EAP, but it still is. PANA is an abbreviation of Protocol for Carrying Authentication over Network Access. Yeah, let's just stick with PANA. Here, devices authenticate themselves on a network to gain the access they want. EAP is used as the authentication protocol for key distribution, key agreement, and key derivation protocols. And that should be all the EAP protocols you need to know about for this certification. SLIP, or Serial Line Internet Protocol, is an encapsulation of IP designed to work over serial ports or modem connections. This has to a large extent been replaced by PPP, at least on most of our systems, because it is just better designed, it has more features, and it doesn't require IP configuration to be set before it's established. We do still use it on microcontrollers, because it has a tiny overhead. So in this case, it makes sense to use it there. PPP, or the point-to-point protocol, can be used over pretty much any network connection we have. Serial cables, phone lines, trunks, cell phones. And it has been very widely used for dial-up connections. Since IP packets can't really be transported over a modem line on their own, they need some sort of data link protocol to do that for them. In comes PPP. VPNs, or virtual private networks, are very widely used today. And they're used for a variety of reasons. They make a tunnel through the internet to some sort of other network you want to go to. This can be you working remotely and needing to get on your company's internal network. You use your VPN connection, and then all your traffic is going to go through that network. You have exactly the same look and feel you'd have if you were actually on the network there physically. Or you can use it if you want to avoid some geo restrictions. I know people who use it for Netflix. Oh, did you see this new series was added to Netflix in Denmark or the UK or the US? They fire up their VPN connection, get in a connection where they exit out through a point in the country they want to see it from, then they go to Netflix. Now they get you on Netflix from that country. I know many people who use them for many different things. You can use it to visit websites, so they don't know where you're really at. And obviously the connection is encrypted. In my world, VPN connections are awesome. It's a great tool to stay connected with a lot of things you want to do while still being secure. And then finally, let's look at the point-to-point tunneling protocol and L2TP. PPTP, or the point-to-point tunneling protocol, should not really be used. It's a way we use to implement virtual private networks just like the VPN, but there are just so many security issues associated with it, we don't want to use it anymore. VPNs are much better. It used the TCP control channel and a GRE tunnel to encapsulate the PPP package, but there is no built-in encryption or authentication. It's just tunneling the PPP to add that layer of security. Don't use it. L2TP, or Layer 2. You all remember Layer 2, right? It's a tunnel protocol used to support VPNs or as part of the service delivery for ISPs, Internet Service Providers. There is no built-in encryption or confidentiality, but that relies on the encryption protocols that we use with it. It's just the tunnel.